Hello, regular members, and welcome to Lynchian Picks on the Coffee House from Coffee Next Movie Picks, a members-only collection venturing into the dreamlike world of David Lynch films and black, damn fine coffee. You are listening to the first bonus episode, part of this series, where we will be covering the beautiful pilot episode of the one, the only, Twin Peaks. Please take a seat, stay a while, and let's talk David Lynch over some black coffee. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry about the delay in getting this bonus episode to you. I know the week I'm releasing this, I said I would release it on Tuesday, which is the 29th, and I'm sitting here recording this on Tuesday the 29th, so I'm obviously behind. This is like 2 to 3 days behind my usual schedule I have. Life would be so much easier if I don't know, took a week off, and instead of really taking that week off, I recorded episodes ahead of time. Like if I was just always an episode ahead, that'd be so nice. I guess I'm not at that level of podcasting yet. That's a few years down the line, I think. Right now, I'm just making it. I'm surviving. Anyways, I'm so sorry about the delay. With that being said, everything else will be delayed, of course. I'll be honest, life has been busy. And it's not even that life has been busy. So wait, I lied. It's actually that I don't know, my 5 to 9, so to speak, like my time after my full-time job has just become more sacred to me, I guess. Not that this podcast isn't sacred, but it definitely locks me in my house for a week. Like whenever I'm recording an episode, that's kind of like a week-long commitment. Editing and graphic design and all that stuff. That's a lot. And I don't know, I've just needed that time for other things or to decompress. Since it's just us here, the regulars, work has been so stressful lately. So I've needed kind of that extra time just to be a human being after work. So I appreciate you all for understanding, and I'm so sorry that I did not fulfill my promise getting this to you. But if you are at all familiar with this show, which you're a regular, you are, then it's safe to say that, if I say something's going to be released on this day, you can expect it within a week after that day. So sorry about that. But I would like to say that I appreciate you all for being here. If you are listening to this episode, that means you are a paying member of the Coffee House. And for that, I'm very grateful. Thank you for being here. That is very kind of you. I hope to bring you more episodes like this in the future. I already have a Twin Peaks The Return bonus episode on my calendar, so that will be coming very shortly after this episode. I hope to do other ones as part of Lynchian Picks. I do have both of David Lynch's books, so I could read those and review those towards the end of the series. And then, of course, in between series, when I'm working on the next one, I'll do little bonus episodes here and there of like movies, or maybe I'm just coming on here to check in or talk about like a video game or something. It's really whatever you all want to hear. You are the paying customers after all. So I'll do whatever you say. I'll do a little dance if you want, really anything. But yes, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I am excited to get into this little discussion. It is such a treat. It is such a treat whenever I get to return to not only the original run of Twin Peaks, but specifically this pilot episode. It feels new every time. A sense of calm and just engagement washes over me, so much so that I fall asleep. I get so comfortable watching Twin Peaks that I fall asleep. That's something I'll talk about, but it is always so nice to watch this episode. If you have not seen this episode, that is okay. I'm saying it will be a spoiler-free discussion, but like it's the first episode, so there's not much to spoil. But there will be a point in the discussion where I give some of my thoughts on the rest of the original run of this show. And at that point, I will give a spoiler warning and just skip ahead a few seconds, few minutes, and I'll be done talking about it, hopefully. But yes, very excited to get into this. If you've been listening to my show for a while, you know that I find any opportunity to talk about Twin Peaks. So this is exciting. This is exciting for me. Getting right into it. Now showing the Lynchian Picks, our discussion segment diving deep into the dreamlike nightmares of David Lynch. Deep in the Pacific Northwest lies the quiet town of Twin Peaks, Washington, filled with peculiar yet simple residents and where a yellow streetlight still means slow down, not speed up. When the mutilated body of beloved high school homecoming queen Laura Palmer is discovered, the town of Twin Peaks is cast into a world of sorrow and dark secrets. Twin Peaks was created by Mark Frost and David Lynch. It stars Kyle MacLachlan as Special FBI Agent Dale Cooper and Michael Ontkean as Sheriff Harry S. Truman. It originally premiered April 8th, 1990. Okay, here we go. Like I said, I'll be clear when spoilers come up, but for now, this is just about the pilot. I want this discussion to be pilot focused. Because if not, I'm just going to start talking about the whole show, and who knows how long we'll be here. I'm aiming for this. Hopefully this will be like a nice little 30-minute bonus episode, you know? I wish I had an outlet to talk about the whole show. And I've thought about that. And of course, I've talked about this on my podcast before, but I am just coming off listening to The Detective and the Log Lady, which is a Twin Peaks recap rewatch podcast from the Evolution of Horror network. That they just finished their rewatch, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know. There is a Twin Peaks shaped hole in my life. And listening to that show, I so badly wanted to be a part of it. I wish I was like the third host in the room, but they did such a wonderful job. So if you want a Twin Peaks recap rewatch podcast, go there. This will just be a short little discussion. Maybe one day, the need will arise for me to have a recap podcast, and I'll have something to contribute to the Twin Peaks space. But I don't feel like I have anything, I don't know, super special to contribute right now. So for this discussion and the other bonus discussion on The Return, this is going to be more focused on my overall thoughts and interpretations rather than the reception and context of the show. For a lot of my Lynch reviews, I've kind of been diving in deep to the context, but for this one, I just kind of want to talk about the episode a bit. Since this, I just said I'm not going to, but it is so important. It is a really important aspect of this show to talk about the cultural impact. So to lightly touch on that, all I want to say is that if Blue Velvet didn't already make David Lynch into a household name, this film certainly did. Twin Peaks saw a massive cult following and was, arguably still is, a pop culture phenomenon. Actors were on the cover of magazines. There was an SNL skit. There was even a Simpsons gag that parodied Twin Peaks, which I recommend searching that on YouTube if you want to see that. It's really funny. Not to mention, the show also birthed a whole wave of other media forms inspired by this story and setting. There is just a wide array of movies and TV shows and books that draw inspiration from Twin Peaks. And I'm saving this because I feel like the most influences are seen in this media form. But video games, there are so many video games that have just explicitly stated the influence that Twin Peaks has had on them. Games like Deadly Premonition, Alan Wake, Life is Strange, and much, much more. I have only played Life of Strange out of those ones, although I'm planning on buying Alan Wake 2 pretty soon. But Life is Strange is a story about the effects of abuse on a small community. And it is a mystery about a missing girl. it's kind of like teenagers taking on like this detective persona and like, hiding under the noses of like parents or the police department, stuff like that. I played the game when I was like 13, 14. Was I too young? Maybe. But I know I was maybe 15. I'll be fair. I was maybe 15 when I played that. And, was I a little too young? Maybe, but I feel like it was the right moment in life for me to see that. Like it really jump started something in me. And really, I feel like it sparked my love of like storytelling. The good game, good game. Thinking about replaying that soon. So obviously, the original run of Twin Peaks was also a pivotal moment in Lynch's career. The original run was victim to and eventually was canceled due to what many argued to be the effects of studio interference. And many of Lynch's later projects, studio interference is a prominent topic. I feel like when he discusses or tells stories about studio interference, people usually gather that it is referencing what happened with Twin Peaks or his experience with Dune. I know he had other projects that were just shot down and never really saw the light of day, so it could also be referencing that. But I feel like this is definitely the heart of his passion for that subject. The show was canceled after 2 seasons. However, shortly after the show ended, a prequel movie titled Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me was released. And then 27 years after the show originally aired, 25 after it ended, a limited series titled Twin Peaks The Return aired, which is kind of just an entirely new show. I guess you could call it like an epilogue story or a sequel, but it really just feels like something entirely different. It's definitely not a season 3. I think calling it a limited series is definitely the proper term. I don't want to get too ahead of myself here, so I want to get into this discussion of the pilot. But there is a lot more to be said, but obviously I'm going to have my discussion on Fire Walk With Me on the main Coffee House channel, and then I'm going to come back and talk about The Return, so we can kind of talk about more context at the tail end of this larger show. Okay, one thing I would like to immediately start this discussion with is that we have an auteur signature here. The white noise, the ambient sounds, the wind is here. This pilot immediately starts with this low humming, howling wind noise, which if you've listened to any of the other parts in Lynchian Picks, you know that all of them also start with this. I think the only exception was Wild at Heart so far. So that's here on display again. This is something that is directly tied to Lynch. This is something he likes to do. And if you've watched the Lynch Oz documentary, you even know that sometimes when he directed his actors, he would say, "It needs more wind." That would be his only explanation. But when he said that, he meant that it needs more mystery. There needs to be more nuance to your performance. And I feel like that perfectly describes to me what the term Lynchian means. There is this layer covering the surface that you can't explicitly name. This layer doesn't have a name, but it enshrouds something in this dark, complicated mystery. Nothing ever is as it seems. There's always more to something, whether that be there's something beautiful underneath, or it means there's something horrifying underneath. In Lynch's case, most times it's something horrifying underneath. But this is something that I love about all of Lynch's projects, and I love that all of his projects start with this wind, almost like it's just like, I don't know, his signature at the very top of the project. Obviously, there are a lot of other artists that are a part of these projects and everything, but I've talked about auteur theory before in the Gretathon, but he ultimately signs off on this, and his vision is the one that's most clear in this finished product. Not to overshadow Mark Frost, who had a large part in this show, but things like this, I just think David Lynch, you know. Um, but yeah, so the wind is here, and it's even accompanied by the sound of foghorns, which I really like. And the first time I watched this show, I remember I watched the show back in high school, and the foghorns, I thought it was something wrong with my speaker. There's just kind of this low, mm, mm. I don't know if that will come through on my microphone, but it's just this sporadic humming noise in the background. And the character Pete, who the show opens with, played by Jack Nance, he even acknowledges the foghorns. But I don't know, it just adds kind of like this world building in a way. It immediately tells you where you are, what time period you're in, what the tone is. I mean, it's just kind of like this very quiet, mellow atmosphere. It is beautiful from the very beginning. And I love, 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 love that this show starts with the sawmill characters. If you have seen the show, you know that the sawmill plot line is one of the more complicated ones, and it's not exactly the favorite of Twin Peaks fans because it doesn't have any of those cool supernatural elements or anything. But I think that this is the perfect place to start the story in. Joan Chen, Josie Packard, played by Joan Chen, her opening the show, putting on lipstick in the mirror, in the dark, is just such a striking image. And I don't know, it speaks to the show really well, kind of about like this beautiful image that has all of these dark secrets underneath. I feel like the character of Josie is the perfect character to represent that. And of course, very quickly, we meet Catherine Martell, played by Piper Laurie. We meet Pete, played by Jack Nance, like I said. These characters are so much fun, and it actually wasn't until I listened to the Detective and the Log Lady podcast that I really fell in love with these characters and this larger plot line. But they really are so funny and campy and dramatic, and they really give this show a lot of like the entertainment, and I feel like they identify this original run. I'm not going to say whether they are in the movie or the return or not, but I feel like the original run belongs to them. Like they kind of set everything in motion, and that is exemplified really well in this opening scene. And I think that this is made even more evident with the fact that the person who finds Laura Palmer's body is Pete. He's on his way to go fishing, and he turns around and sees something wrapped in plastic, as he said to the sheriff's station, and he goes to find the body. And then we meet our police force. We meet Sheriff Harry S. Truman. We meet Deputy Andy and Deputy Hawk, and also Lucy, who is the receptionist at the sheriff's station. And they go and discover the body. And that is where all of the events of this whole show are put into motion, because they discover that the body belongs to the beloved high school homecoming queen, Laura Palmer. And they can't believe it. They can't believe that Laura was murdered. And as we find out later in this episode, they also cannot believe that she was living a double life. She was up to things that were a lot darker than people suspected. So she was a woman of many mysteries, which we will learn more about as the show goes on, and in the movie. But this brings us to Sarah and Leland Palmer, who are the next topic I would like to discuss from this pilot episode. Wow. From the very beginning, when I first watched this show back in high school, these two, especially Sarah Palmer, they are who I was watching the show for. Anytime they were on screen, I got so excited because I knew something was about to go down. And this is kind of the plot line that I was showing up for. And obviously, like, they are central to the main plot line. But if you've seen the show, you know that as it goes on, especially the character of Sarah Palmer is kind of forgotten at times. So whenever she did appear, I kind of sat up straight and I was watching. And I think that is because of how powerful her performance is in this first episode. Grace Zabriskie, who plays Sarah, is absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And this cements her in my book as like one of the greatest performances of all time. Her work throughout the entirety of Twin Peaks is just incredible. And I love seeing her in other Lynch projects. We just did Wild at Heart, and she was great in that too. And she eventually is in Inland Empire, which I also love her character in that. She's just so good in anything that she does with David Lynch. I haven't seen her in anything besides a Lynch project, so I need to do that. But this opening with Sarah is really well done, because you get to see this mother, this character, sort of devolve from being a mother into being this just force of unbridled sorrow and pain. And you get to watch her very quickly become that in this episode. And it's not a treat, but it is so captivating to watch that evolve and continue throughout the remainder of the show. And then Leland Palmer is also quite an interesting character. Yeah, he is the dad, and it's just very interesting to see his reaction to hearing the news that his daughter is dead. And Ray Wise, who plays Leland Palmer, performs this character so well. Just very high emotion and everything. Yeah, I can't say too much, because I also think, like, in the following episodes after this is where we get to see like a lot of those moments with him. So that's why I can't get too much into it. But yeah, both of these characters, they just set up something incredible for the future episodes. And they are what I was tuning in for. And even in the return, I was tuning in for anything to do with them. I won't say kind of like the capacity that either of them are in the return. But oh my gosh, like, they are why I show up. Anything to do with the Palmers. And also talking about the Palmer house, it's just terrifying. And I don't know why that is. I think just like the way Lynch pays special attention to the details of this house, like a cigarette tray or a ceiling fan, or I don't know, like the darkness of a stairwell. Is that something up there you see? Or are those footsteps I hear upstairs? Like, the way characters interact with this house is also very interesting. They said this a lot on The Detective and the Log Lady, but the house is almost like its own character. And you get to see the house develop and evolve throughout all of these episodes and these years. And just the things that happen in this house are just horrific. So yeah, we will talk about that more in future reviews, discussions for Twin Peaks week. But yeah, I am just always sat for Sarah and Leland Palmer. The school scene and characters. I made a note here to talk about this. I think that everything in this episode sets a tone. I think it does a great job kind of like giving you a preview of how you will feel for whatever plot line, 20 episodes later. And I think watching it around this time, I noticed kind of how much of a letdown and how frustrated I feel sometimes with the school characters, the student characters, specifically Donna, James, and Audrey. Even though Audrey kind of does her own thing, I think that these characters, they work really well in this episode. But as the show goes on, I feel as if the writers don't know what to do with them or who they are. And this eventually leads these characters to very disappointing places, in my opinion. Especially a character like Donna. I'll get into that in the return episode. I'm getting way ahead of myself here. But I noticed in this episode, I'm like, okay, these characters are here to serve a purpose in this episode. They're here to react to the news of their friend's death. Even in James's case, his girlfriend's death. And they are there to show extreme grief, sorrow, pain, and to do some sleuthing of their own to get to the bottom of it, and kind of like, what is their reaction to this tragedy? It's very interesting. But beyond that, I think these characters kind of don't really have much, which is disappointing. But you watch the show, you develop your own opinions. I do love these characters. I do love them. Mainly talking about Donna and James. I do love these characters, but they frustrate me. Not them. The writing of them frustrates me. So many of these other characters on the show, I feel like they were something beyond episode 1, but these characters, I feel like they just kind of stumble around after this episode, and they never really are driven to a destination. Talking about Audrey a bit, she is my favorite character from the show. Audrey is my favorite character, but I feel that she suffers this as well. This is more later in the original run of the show, but I feel like she kind of was up to a lot, and she kind of had a season 1 arc, which was excellent. But after that, she was not recovered from her season 1 arc very well. Actually, it was quite horribly. So this character also frustrates me a bit, specifically talking about this character in the original run of the show. But talking just about the pilot, like I'm supposed to, Audrey is a fantastic and thrilling character, I think. We're introduced to her feet first as she's stepping out of a car or getting into a car or something. She has her own theme, Audrey's Dance, this dreamy track. It is so good. I listen to Audrey's Dance like just at work if I need to like focus on something. I love it so much, and I feel like it represents my love for this character so well, because that track really embodies her, and she is very charming, but she's so mysterious, and she's kind of like rude and like a troll, but she's also, as we learn, very sympathetic and deeply affected by things. So such an interesting character. And something I noticed, I didn't have kind of like my Lynchian glasses on when I've seen this episode previously, but watching it this time, something I noticed is that once she steps into the school, she takes off her kind of like whatever shoes those are. Not loafers, but loafers. I don't know. She takes off like her boring shoes and she slips on some red heels. And of course, you could think of this like, oh my gosh, she's so cool. She's so sexy. Oh my gosh, I love Sherilyn Fenn. I love Audrey. Yes, sure. But as someone who has watched Lynch Oz, whenever I see red heels, not only in a David Lynch project, but any movie, the alarm bells are sounding. And I think of The Wizard of Oz, and especially with David Lynch, I do. Red heels, clicking her heels 3 times, going back home. This character immediately is presented as someone who creates her own reality. She is not living in reality. She makes her own. She's living in this dreamlike world. She makes up her own rules. She's escaping from something darker, we can imagine. So I feel like a teenage girl is just the perfect character to represent this, because, you know, you go to school, you're not by these parents or people watching you or people that you have to play a certain part for. You're kind of in this environment where you can be whoever you want to be. So I just think that this character Audrey is fantastic from the very beginning. Actually fantastic at the very beginning, and then you can decide how she ends up. A lot of things happen to this character as the show goes on, which we will get into in later episodes, but yeah, I love Audrey. We also are introduced to the diner characters, Norma, Shelley, and Bobby. Bobby isn't really a diner character, but this is where he is introduced, I believe. So we see these characters, and the name of the game with these characters is affairs. There are a lot of affairs happening in Twin Peaks. That is not just with the diner characters, it is with pretty much every single character in this show. I want to say like 90% of the characters here are having an affair of some sort. So I thought it would be fun to recap the affairs that we are introduced to in just this first episode. Only this first episode. So Big Ed is cheating on Nadine with Norma. Norma is cheating on Hank, her husband in prison, with Big Ed. Bobby is cheating on Laura with Shelley, or was cheating on Laura with Shelley. Shelley is cheating on Leo with Bobby. Laura was cheating on Bobby with James. James was kind of cheating on Laura with Donna. I say kinda because I feel like this happened after her death, but it happened within 24 hours of the body being discovered, which is crazy to me. And then Donna was kind of cheating on Mike with James. And then at the very end of the episode, it's revealed that Harry and Josie, although they're not cheating on anyone, they are having a secret affair. All of this is introduced in only the first episode. And would you believe me if I said there are about 4 or 5 more affairs that are introduced in season 1? Oh, and also Dr. Jacoby. Is that his name? Yeah, Dr. Jacoby. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. And I feel like when something is this common, it is not coincidence, obviously. This is spelling out something. It is spelling out this larger subtext of the show. So yes, this is a town full of secrets, and those secrets are not just affairs. There are much darker secrets dealing with sex trafficking, drugs, murder, violence, all of these different things in this town. But the main point is that everyone has a secret here. No one is as they appear to be. And the murder of Laura Palmer causes all of these secrets to rise to the surface. So it's not that those secrets were never there. They are just a light is now shining on them. The murder of this one teenage girl is putting a spotlight on all of these secrets that you would think are unrelated. And since this is so repeated, I think of this as a critique of small town America. Although everything in Twin Peaks seems very cherry pie, there is a dark underbelly that is present. And this is something that is seen in so much of Lynch's works. And I would like to use this episode to solidify, and I'm also going to repeat this in the Fire Walk With Me episode, but I want to use this episode to solidify this as one of David Lynch's auteur signatures. This is a narrative signature, so not your typical auteur signature. But we go to Blue Velvet, Wild at Heart even, and then onwards, Mulholland Drive, something like that. Nothing is as it appears to be. There is a dark underbelly to anything that appears to be good. This is something that is just a trademark of David Lynch films. And I feel like in Twin Peaks, the symbol of coffee and cherry pie represent that so well. The expression, like, I think Sherilyn Fenn even calls David Lynch at one point, oh, he's so cherry pie, just to mean someone is so optimistic. They are so pleasant and comfortable and kind and loving and affectionate, like a warm blanket is what I think of when someone says like, "Oh, so cherry pie." So cherry pie served with black coffee. So black coffee, it's something that's often thought of as bitter or something that people think of like it needs to be lighter or sweeter, more palatable. Um, so I really like this symbol of something like pleasant and comfortable next to something dark and bitter. I don't know if I'm reading into this too much, but I feel like you can never read into something too much with David Lynch. But that's something I thought of like with this rewatch, this just coffee and cherry pie as a symbol. And obviously it's something that is repeated throughout all of Twin Peaks. And it's something that Twin Peaks is known for. People that haven't seen this, they will think of coffee and cherry pie. One of my final points here is the horror of this episode. And if you just went into this pilot episode not knowing anything about it, you probably would not imagine that this show has horror elements in it. But at the very end of the episode, they definitely come through in a really kind of strange but shocking way. And I feel like this is kind of just, it's like an elongated jump scare. And I feel like it starts at this moment with Donna and James in the woods together when they're hiding the other half of Laura's necklace. These two characters, they are alone together. And I don't know, it's just like such, you feel like you are alone in the forest with these characters. There's so much darkness around them, and the camera is so close up on the characters' faces, and they're kind of just talking quietly to one another, discussing secrets. You feel like you're there with them. So you're in this space with them that feels very private, but it's also incredibly isolating and mysterious. And I feel like this whole scene is set up just expertly. It expertly crafted, especially with the moment that follows. So we go back to Sarah Palmer, who is alone in her house. So also this character who is alone, but she is in a room that's lit, and you hear something lurking upstairs. And we just sort of see images of the house for a while, like I said, very haunting. And there's a shot of the stairs going up, and it's dark. And you can vaguely see something crouching in the darkness. Horrifying. Oh my God. And we go back to Sarah Palmer. She's on the couch crying. And she looks up and appears to have a vision and screams in horror. And if you look, this is easy to miss. If you look up in the mirrors behind her, there is a man standing there with long gray hair, smiling. This is bone chilling. This is absolutely bone chilling. And I remember when I first watched this, I did not even notice this man crouching up in the stairs or but in the mirrors. I never saw that. And it wasn't until I was like listening to a podcast or something and someone mentioned it and I was like, what? And I went back and I watched it and it was almost scarier. I don't know. It's hard to say, but it was almost scarier, like realizing you never knew that was there. But I know I've had friends watch this episode and they noticed it, and this one friend, I won't name this friend, I don't want to embarrass him, but he said he cried when he first saw it because it was so scary. And I don't blame him. It is terrifying. And of course, she lets out this like, guttural scream. And that's how the episode ends. And then it plays Laura Pictures' prom photo. So yeah. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about more of my thoughts just on the original run of the show. So everything beyond the pilot episode, I'm going to try to be really quick about it, because I do think it is unfortunate that I just do not have really the time to talk about this show in its entirety. So I want to touch on just some of my favorite and least favorite moments. So getting into that, spoilers for a little bit. So you have been warned. So some of my favorite moments from the rest of the show's original run, is when Ronette wakes up in the hospital. Her arms slowly raise, and she has a memory, a flashback of what happened in the train car, and she sees Bob. That to me, watching that when I was in sophomore year of high school, that at the time, no, probably still to this day, is the most horrific thing I've ever seen. I remember not being able to sleep because of that scene. It just comes out of nowhere, and it is so shocking. It just like really hits you over the head. I watch that scene all the time because I think it's so well done and it's so impactful. But my God, it's horrifying. And speaking of that, Maddie, played by Cheryl Lee, Maddie's death is also just incredibly impactful, horrifying, violent, just gruesome for something that is on, TV. I can't believe they got away with that. And also, just like, I remember that episode, there were so many supernatural elements or symbols introduced. And that episode is just really stand out. I think that's episode 7 of season 2. And this is an unpopular opinion, but one of my favorite moments from the original run of the show is Josie's death. When she is in the hotel about to be arrested for shooting Dale Cooper, and she passes out on the bed, and Bob appears, and Josie vanishes, and she's later trapped inside a wooden drawer knob. Now, this is a very unpopular scene, and this happens kind of in the dark trenches of season 2 when the show gets bad. But I'll say it, I like this episode, and I think that this scene is really scary and really cool. And it's not perfect. The special effects are not great, but I think that it's so strange. And I really like that it's kind of the only moment in the entirety of Twin Peaks where wood, just the symbol of wood, is given any acknowledgement. I mean, we have the log lady, and it's touched on with her that like her husband is trapped in the wood. And then Josie gets trapped in the wood, and I think it's really, really cool that it's sort of like ties together. I wish it was explained a little bit more. Not that anything in this show is ever explained, but I just think this is cool. It's really disappointing that this doesn't really result in anything in The Return or anywhere else in Twin Peaks. It's not acknowledged. And in fact, it's moved on from pretty quickly in the show. So yeah, but I do love that moment. Some of my least favorite moments are what becomes of Audrey's character. I like Audrey in The Return, and I like Audrey in season 1, but towards the end of season 2, I feel like this character is just done so wrong. And it's really disappointing. And I don't know, they just really fumbled the bag with Audrey. Towards the end of season 2, I just don't know what they were doing with her. And she feels not at all like, I don't know how she started. I know she goes through a lot of trauma in the show, but it feels like even that's just kind of like swept under the rug. It really feels like she's just a different character entirely, which I don't know, maybe is Lynchian. And then a lot of the season 2 moments, obviously, but that's been talked about exhaustively. Donna's character, I feel like, especially after season 1, this character has nothing to do. I feel like she could have been done so well, and everything was set up, but like, I don't know that the writers knew what to do with her. I don't even think David Lynch really knew what to do with her, which is unfortunate. And obviously, I just hate the deterioration of the show's quality. We have a lot of these detail shots, especially in this pilot episode, and you sort of lose that as the show goes on. There's less shots that kind of let you sit with the town of Twin Peaks. And it just, I don't know, it feels like it loses something, especially when we get deep into season 2. And, you know, a lot of these early episodes, you can tell that they're filming like on location in a forest. But then later, you know, it's kind of like they're just on a soundstage. And I get it, but like, you know, it just, you lose the beauty and the heart of what the show started with. And of course, my least favorite moment overall is when James sings that song. Yeah. Okay, spoilers are over. I am going to give this the Nick pick, of course. Duh. The pilot episode of Twin Peaks is an undeniable work of art, and in my opinion, one of the single best television episodes ever. The time spent settling into this town, its strange residents, and the pain that comes with this new tragedy transports you into a different, dreamlike world. The towering Douglas fir trees, the roaring waterfall, fog rising over the mountains, black coffee, and cherry pie. These images are so beautifully and delicately communicated in this episode that it's impossible for me not to forever associate them with this fictional world. With a score and performances that are just as iconic and memorable, Twin Peaks' pilot episode is a haunting but beautiful dream. Thank you for listening, everyone. Of course, if you would like to follow along with Lynchian Picks, the next episode of the collection will feature a discussion of Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. This will be released sometime in the next, 2 to 3 days. And then in the next 2 to 3 days after that, there will be an episode on Twin Peaks The Return. That will also be a bonus only for regular members. Thank you so much for listening to Lynchian Picks and for being a regular of the Coffee House. I really appreciate it. If you like what you heard, please subscribe, drop me a rating, and tell a friend about me and the Coffee House and Lynchian Picks. All of it. It would really help. A special thank you to Nathan Moore for creating the show's opening and closing themes. Until next time. Wrapped in plastic.